Hello everyone, I am the English-born idiot. And have you heard of the hit game War Thunder? No, you haven't? Do you want to consider playing? Obviously, you may have seen one of my previous videos on this because you're from either A, Yugi Tuesday, or B, Zombie Saturdays, or you might even be from the new series, Minecraft Hardcore. So you're probably thinking, you've probably downloaded the game already. You're probably like, what are all these nations? Well, what do I pick? Which nation is the best? And that is the question we'll be asking today. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know whenever I upload for these weekly videos. And also like the video if you did enjoy. Now, we'll be talking today about the starter nations, which is War Thunder, which is the USA, Germany, Soviet Union, Great Britain, which isn't in the thumbnail, but forget about that. They don't matter. The French, Italy, Japan, Sweden. Now, for those who've actually watched the channel, and for those who are experienced War Thunder players, or at least watch the channel, you don't need to be experienced War Thunder players. You might have just came across my channel like right now. Um, so for those who have actually watched the channel, you'll know I have Germany. I have it now up to 6.3. I have the Soviet Union up to 6.3. I have China up to 4.0. I have Sweden up to 3.0. I have Great Britain up to 4.7. I don't have Italy, I don't have Japan, and I don't have France and USA. And for those, I have asked my friends who are big into War Thunder players their opinions on it. And I'll not be telling you their names for that, but I will be like telling you the direct quotes and like just explain the notes they gave me. And we'll be starting off in order of the nations, which is USA, Germany, Soviet Union, UK, Japan, I think, then China, then Italy, then France, and then Sweden. And Israel is a nation itself, but it's not a starter nation because you need to have like rank 5. So yeah, we'll get into the USA. Oh, actually, first, you probably saw at the beginning of this video the criteria, and the criteria for this video is going to be. I just need to. I don't know. I can't remember, but it's like quality of life, like the quality of the vehicles, the variety of vehicles, the learning curve, and most of these are just kind of like quality and variety can kind of be put into one because there's a lot of like if there's a bunch of light, medium, and heavy tanks, then you're probably like, um, what is this? Like, what is the goodness of this? Like, what if they're not that great? For example, two bits in France. But yeah, let's get into it. Early tier America. So from what I remember from my friend's audio recordings, he said that the Stewarts were nice. The M2A1 is like a lot of them are like a good light vehicles. They really like from 1.0 to 3.0, which is what I kind of do. My friend who is like better than me in War Thunder said that 4.0, but I'll talk a little bit about 4.0. I'll talk a small bit about 4.0. I won't go like big into details. My main things will be 1.0, 3.0 because I feel like those are the bigger beginning nations for me. So 1.0 is basically like mainly this like its rank 1 is mainly like Stewarts. You get the M3 Lee there as well, so you get an access to medium tanks. You do have ever you start off with solid shot and you have later on get access to APHE rounds. So I feel like it teaches you USA teaches you it teaches you good nice light tanks because the light tanks in the USA are perfect for they're perfect for like the Stuarts are probably one of the best light tanks in game. They exemplify the whole thing of light tanks. I like me and my friend agreed to that. I love the Stuarts, especially when I played Japan and Britain. They were fucking great. They were some of my best stuff. Obviously, they have I think they do some of the big gun little armor thing well because they have a lot of that. I no, actually they're kind of middle ground when it comes to big gun little armor because there's the M10s which do like 150 ish. There's the M8 which does 80 something heat round. There's obviously the 75 thing, the 75 millimeter truck, which is just a Sherman gun on a truck early on, which is good. But they have very good medium tanks. The M3 I think is good. I love the fucking 105 from just I hate going up against it, but just from looking at it, I know it's going to be a good tank, and it is a good tank. So I do feel like there is that. So yeah, and going up to 4.0. I can't really remember what a lot of there's you get most of the Shermans at 4 around 4.0, and they're like the biggest, like some of the biggest diggers for the entirety of America. They're like the brawlers, they're big boys. They're the guys that you're gonna want to like use mainly. Obviously, they have, like I said, the M10, they have the Chaffee and the Locust, which I feel like exemplify small scouting vehicles. It also, yeah, it shows very good scouting, and it shows like just very well like small scouting vehicles, and it does that very well. AA, there's a few decent ones, and for just pure like power and guns, there's good. I'm not sure about the learning curve because my friend really didn't give me that much good stuff about it. But for the variety of tanks, there's early on there isn't really much variety. There's a decent amount of variety. You get mostly light tanks. You get some mediums, but you don't really get any heavies until like 4.7, 5.0. Technically, I'm not going to count premium, so I think 5.0 is the earliest. Correct me if I'm wrong, because the M6A1 I think is the first heavy tank. Then there's the T1E1, then there's the Jumbo, then there's the Pershings and the Jumbo 76 after that. And uh then we have, yeah. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of variety. I think they have good variety. They teach you how to aim. I think they do teach you how to aim well, considering you start off with AP rounds and then you get APHE earlier. So it doesn't punish you for not knowing how to aim. So you can start learning how to aim. Then you can start learning how to actually, then when you get the APHE round, you don't need to worry about aiming as much, but you'll probably like know how to aim a bit when you get there. But it doesn't do it as well as other nations. So yeah, I think that's a good start for America. So let's get in to Germany. Germany is a very interesting nation. As in it is again one of the big three with for starters, it's one of the big three with America, Germany, and the Soviet Union. What makes it so interesting is that it's not exactly the most armored. It has a lot of medium tanks, but those medium tanks, apart from the Panzer IIIs, aren't very well armored. The Panzer IVs are pretty lackluster in armor, but they have a good gun, which is not really something you see in like early tier, I guess. Because mainly medium tanks are decent gun, but good armor. Like it's good armor, good gun type of deal. I feel like, especially with like most medium tanks, especially for like because the Shermans, very good armor. Like the Sherman 105, a fucking amazing armor for that BR, and good gun. Decent, maybe a bit underwhelming gun, but still I think it's good gun. I like the gun, and the T-34 is obviously ignoring the jank and the bullshit that can come with T-34s. They have good armor, good gun. But the Panzer IVs have bad armor but good gun. The Panzer IVs have good gun, and the Panzer IIIs are probably the best thing they have for the whole big like brawler type things. The Panzer IIIs, like the Panzer III-E, and well, not the Panzer III, Panzer III-L and M are like the best thing for that. I love the Panzer III-L because it's a fucking big, like it can take a lot of shots and it can dish out a lot. They have a lot of fast reloading, boys. So you definitely do get a lot of stuff. They do fast, boys. Well, they have a lot of fast, like, well, premium, a lot of premium fast stuff. They have the Puma, and they have all the Puma variants, I like to call them. Yeah, all the Puma variants, which have different stuff. The 222, which is basically, as you can see in the footage right now, well, at least until I edit it and do stuff, I'm getting killed by a 222, a Chinese one specifically, and it is I like to call it Puma variant because it's a fast light tank. I feel like they do the speedy light tanks in general the best. Obviously, France, I will go into France later, but France is another nation that does that very well, especially later on. Um, but yeah, I do feel like in terms of quality of tanks, they have very early on, I feel like it's a mixed bag. Then when you get into the Panzer threes and the Studs, those are some like 3.0 for like Germany for me is one of my most favorite BRs and one of the best BRs for me. It has It has W after W after W. It shows you probably the one of the best one of the best high penning low armor tanks in the Martyr 3H, where it's a nice long range sniping boy with fucking great gun, but very minimal armor, and your probably hope is either jank or no armor best armor. And then you have the studs, which are casemates, which have they're basically just like pretty well armored stuff, and it teaches you casemates. I think best out of the big three nations. I think, and it because I don't think sorry, not Britain. I don't think America has any, and the Soviet Union has a couple, but mainly their main casemates come later on, like after like 4.7 ish, 4.0, 4.7 after the Su-80s. The 85s start is their main 85 onwards, or they're like their main big boys for that. So yeah, it teaches you well on casemates, which is basically like sometimes it could be good big gun, but most of the time the things that are synonymous with casemates is that it's very decent armor and pretty good gun. But the thing that you're taking away from that is the turret. So yeah, it also has one of the Mimi vehicles with the 15 centimeter, as you will see in the recording for Germany. So yeah, there is that. In terms of there isn't really a huge learning curve into at least for the earlier parts. I feel like because it is very similar stuff throughout. Because you're not really going from like AP rounds to explosive filler, and you're not really going from AP to explosive filler. And yeah, so I feel like it is another good nation for that. And I feel like it's a good starter nation, obviously. And however, another thing I forgot to mention, it does have a fully automatic gun, like a fully automatic tank in it. So there's that. Yeah. Um, what else is there to mention about Germany early tier? Obviously, learning curve, I felt not that much. Decent learning curve, obviously. I feel like the learning curve on that is about not very much, especially from 1.0 to 3.0, maybe even 4.0 including, because like yeah, it teaches you casemates early on. It teaches you all that stuff early on, so like you already know about that stuff, and it's only really until you get to the Tiger where it actually starts to becoming like it becomes more difficult later on. The learning curve doesn't hit until after 4.3, until after the Sturmel, because you have like the Diggermax and Sturmel, which is like effectively can work as well as it's basically just a much better Marner 3H in the fact that it's just a bigger gun, less armor. Like you're very HE susceptible in both of them, and you're kind of meant to be out long range and shooting at targets in there, and that's kind of what you're meant to do, and that's what they're fucking very good at. I will say that they are incredible at that, and I will keep that, and I will like say that that's like 100% the case. They're very good at that. Now yeah, so that is it for Germany. I feel like they're good, and I'll give my rankings at the end, by the way, for all of them, which I think is the best. So that's it for that, and I will go on to the Soviet Union now. Now, the Soviet Union are my starting boys. They are the boys that I began with. You know, they're my baby. They're my baby. And with that, I know probably this is probably my most knowledgeable of all the nations in the game. I know most about the Soviet Union than any other nation that I have knowledge about. I'm not saying I know most about it in my friend group. I'm just saying compared to every other nation, that's what I know. And from 1.0 to 1.3, I can tell you that it's very it's not the Soviet Union at its best. The Soviet Union is good, I think, solid at least. At very not solid, better than solid, very good, but it's not at its best, obviously, until you get to like 3.7. 3.7 onwards is where it shines. And but 1.0 to 3.0 is still very good in its own right. It has the variety of tanks isn't up to 4.0 very good because it does that's like where it's like heavy. It's good. It basically shoves in all the heavy tanks there. There's the fucking KV variants. up to 4.0. There's the KV1, there's the KV1S. I know it's a 4.3, but the KV1s is 5. Like around there, end of rank 2 is all the end of rank 2, beginning of rank 3 is all the heavy tanks, especially when you get into the ISs and all that stuff. Yeah. KV1, KV1, KV2, KV1S. There's obviously the premium stuff as well. You have all that, and it does have good brawlers as well. In the T-34s, it has very good light tanks in 2.7. I like the T-80. The T-80 is great. The T-50 is decent. It's not. I prefer the T-80 at this point, but like the T-50 is also very good. It's a nice speedy boy. It has a very good HE casemate. It has a mix of HE and casemate, where like a HE boy, which is kind of like what Sweden does best, and casemate, which is what Germany does best. And I feel like early on, in terms of pure casemates, Soviet falls flat on that, and it's kind of obvious because of the fact that because there's only like really one until you get to like the Su-85, which is 4.3, I think. Su-85, like not the Su-85M, which is 5.0, but the Su-85, I think, is a 4.3. That in itself is a decent gap, and the rest of them are either just too lightly armored to be considered casemates, or just like straight up like the Yag or like truck type big gun stuff with more like the Flak 88, similar to like Flak 88 type vehicles, where it's like you have to turn the turret, but it's not as big as the Flak 88. I should mention that because yeah, the thing is it's about half the size of a Flak 88, if that. The Yag is about half the size of a Flak 88. And basically yeah, but there is a decent variety of vehicles early on, up to 3.0. Goods, well, mainly light tanks and some mediums. There's the T-28s, but they're an interesting type of medium where it's like basically more or less mediums that are big crew rather than big armored, which is the same as the two C's, the 2C bis and the just the 2C regular. And they're just like they're not well armored at all, but they have a okay gun and they have a lot of crew in them, so that's what makes them survivable. And they're like too kind of too big to be light tanks. That's what kind of so I don't feel like they do the good brawler type of medium very well. I don't think the T-28s are great brawlers. They're good at like they're just nice, I think, but there are definitely a lot better brawlers, especially for the USSR. And there's a thing that I haven't gotten into yet. AA guns. Well, I brought in the 222, but I feel like I should get into AA guns now. And Soviets have a lot of decent AA guns early on, as in both what me and my friends describe as strike AA and just pure AA. Strike AAs are AAs that are like low fire rate AAs that have high pen and are better at killing tanks than they are at killing planes. And high firing AA guns are AA guns that have low pen but are better at killing planes, and you'll be better off just shooting planes at them most 9 times out of 10, unless you like have to shoot at a fucking tank because there's a Tiger H1 over there and you're in the BTR ZD and you're like, well, shit, gotta use it. Gotta fucking shoot the barrel off. Which for me doesn't really work out as much as I would like to because I'm not that great at fucking AA and I'm not that great at shooting it. So yeah. But it does have a good variety of AA, and I don't know much about American AA. I think it's mainly just due to the 50 cals that are decent, and 50 cals do very well for AAing. So there is that. And the 222 and the Verbal Wind and the Ostwind all are good AA guns for Germany. So yeah, I will go back onto that. But yeah, um, there's the ZSU-37, which is a 3.7, which is very good. It's very good for 3.7. It's a very good tank killer. There's the BTR-152A, which is a 2.7, and that's amazing for killing planes. And then there's the other 2.7, which I don't know how good it is. But then there's the Gas AAA, which I heard is very good as well. Well, I've seen in action, but it's not really my cup of tea. So I do think the Soviets are good. However, I feel like it doesn't teach you enough. I feel like it just doesn't like it doesn't really teach you much. Well, actually, when you get to the T-34s, you do have to learn angling, and T-34s and the KVs, you do have to learn angling properly. You do have to start learning how to angle, and I feel like they're one of the good nations that actually teach you how to do that early on. Because Germany, you don't really learn how to angle until like properly learning how to angle with Germany until um yeah until the in oh geez, you can hear my voice in that clip. Oh no. I thought I deafened that. Oh no. But yeah, you can definitely Jesus Christ, now I'm getting out of track. Shut up past me. Now you can yeah, it doesn't really teach you how to properly angle. Like it doesn't like put you into a scenario where you need to like really learn how to angle. I feel like until the either Panzer fours, because I haven't really used like the 3.7 Panzer fours, because I know like it can be difficult, but but mainly the Tiger is where you would like start learning how to angle. The Tiger is angle central, baby. It is the I think out of all tanks in the game, the Tiger is probably the be all and end all of like learning how to angle in tanks, but that's a 5.3 and that's like later tier, so I won't go on to that. Now on to um just back to that. So it teaches you how to angle with the T-34s and the KVs. It's because there are a lot of right angly boys where you can just mop, 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 just angle the turret and all that. It really helps you learning how to angle. And yeah, again, mainly it just teaches you. It does with the SU 1282. It can teach you how to do HE like HE stuff and teaches you like how good HE rounds are, which then goes into the KV2, which is the main thing is HE. Yeah, it does have an SBHE or semi armor piercing high explosive. Yeah, semi high explosive. Is it semi high SPHE? Semi armor piercing high explosive. Yeah, I think that's it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it does teach you that, and but yeah, it doesn't really like get into it. Like I feel like prime Soviet territory, and yeah, it's for me it's not the best, but I do feel like I don't feel like the big three, apart from maybe America, is that great for it. So now on to Great Britain. This is the first nation where I'll be getting notes from my friends. So yeah, let's go. All right, with Britain, let's go into it. The notes are it has no APG, which is true. Most of its tanks have, I think, only one tank early on has APG, and I think that's like the A13 Mark One or Mark Two have APG. It has amazing brawlers with the Valentines and like the Cromwell. Those are great brawlers, and I've used them. They have amazing anti-tanks, which is my friend loves the Archer because it's a 17 pounder at 2.7. The 3-inch gun carrier is amazing. It's a slow moving, heavily armored, and I will say this, heavily armored anti-tank, and it's great. Then there's my favorite boy of all time. There's the Achilles. Um, I that is amazing for me, and it has the prob my friend thinks it has some of the best AAs in game. I have not used it, but I've heard good things about every AA apart from like the Busvark, who I feel like needs to be down tiered, and the Yustavar, who he feels like it's a bit but yeah. Now my thoughts on it. Also decent heavy tanks which teach you how to angle in the Churchills. Because the Churchills do teach you how to angle, like they're kind of like angle central, you know. And yeah, now let's get into my thoughts on it. Yeah, it teaches you how to aim because it has no APHE. Well, very little APHE. So you need to learn how to aim. You need to learn how to aim for like crew slots and ammo. it really teaches you how to aim at the weak spots, and which is good. It has a lot of lightly armored fast boys, which is also good. The variety it has amazing variety of tanks, and I think it has the most early on variety of tanks out of all of them because it has some of the earliest heavy tanks, it has some of the earliest medium tanks, it has a lot of light tanks early on as well. It has a lot of good speedy boys. It has access to Stuarts. It has access to Shermans. It is probably one of the best nations, and honestly, for me, if it is not second place, if not first place in terms of a starter nation, because it teaches you how to aim. It has good spalling as well, so it doesn't punish you as harshly for using AP rounds, and it's good AP rounds as well. It has access to very big guns, so you don't need to worry. So it's again even less punishing with the Achilles and the Archer, all very good guns. Now, I don't personally like the Archer because I feel like because British reverse gear, which is the only downside, but that's just a whole country downside, which doesn't get better until actually no, very early on. The reverse gears are actually kind of decent. It's just that when you get into like rank two, especially, fucking reverse gears go down, man. Unless it's like the Sarks. The Sarks are very good tanks. The Sarks 3 pound or the Sark 6 pounder for me is one of my favorite 3.3s, and great. It is a great lightly armored, high like very good gun, 50 cal wielding beast. It's good. It's very good. Cromwell. It's a great tank that can boss off bitches and just hit hard and do well. It's a nice, and the Valentine is that times 10, as it's able to basically take a bunch of shots and hit back in terms of 10. I only have the 2.3 and the 2.7 variant. I don't have the 3.0 variant, but from my interview with my friends, he said that it has the 3.0 variant has the same round as the Sark 6 pounder. So imagine the armor of basically what he said was a KV1 with the gun of a 6 pounder in it, with the best round of the 6 pounder, which is 121-ish pen, which is very good. And that is very good. So imagine basically just a big fucker. It is a big fucker. Now, mind you, it is very slow, but it gets the job done very well. And it teaches you fast boys, it teaches you how to use slow boys well, and it teaches you how to aim. So it has variety of tanks that can teach you all this different stuff, including angling. It has great AA, great anti-tanks. So yeah, I do feel like Britain. There isn't really much to talk about Britain because there's apart from their reverse gears and later on, which is a bit too far out of my hindsight, and the fact that the Churchills can probably need to be down tier, but they're pretty good. They're like the Churchill Mark One, terrible on up tiers, but when you bring that bitch into a down tier, when it is a full down tier, that boy is so good. It is probably the tank you want to bring out first or second. You do want to bring out that tank 100% of the time if it's a down tier. It's just that good. And for the Stewarts, obviously they're American as well. Even they're American. Well, American quote unquote, but like they're British tanks. Yeah, they're British tanks, but like they're very similar to the American ones, and they just have AP runs at them. Same with the Sherman, I'm guessing. Obviously, you have a Sherman Firefly, which is another 17 pounder, but that's 4.77. About that, and yeah, but there's good brawlers, there's good heavies, there's good speed, there's speed like scouting vehicles. It does everything that it needs to well. There's very bad. There's one egregious thing with Britain, and that's just throughout the entire thing. Like I said, reverse gear, but everything else is very good. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about Britain because there isn't really much to talk about because of how good it is. So yeah, that's it. Going on to China now, or Japan, sorry, which is another nation which I have taken notes from. So yeah, let's get into it. Now, Japan, my friend says, is a very unique nation, and you need to have quick reaction times you need to have quick reaction times to do well due to the stabilizers and the quick reload. Also, another thing I forgot to mention, but a lot of American stuff has stabilizers, which is very good, and some British stuff as well has stabilizers, which is very good, which the Germans and other stuff don't get. So yeah, Yeah, so it is nice for pushing. Not the best, but it can push sometimes. The Hoey is decent armor. The nation itself is passive aggressive, I guess, where sometimes you would be like, it's kind of like middle ground, I think, where it is sometimes this, sometimes that. Um, yeah. You need to have a good game sense of when to push with these tanks. It has good anti-tanks. It excels at it, I think, yeah, because it excels at sniping. It has not great amount of light tanks. It only really has the M24 and the Kini. That's really it, and they're like kind of suited for different purposes. It has okay AA guns early on, and it's a great support nation. And my friend said it's good for teaching. And I would be like, I don't know, maybe, but I do think it's from what I've seen, it's a decent nation. It's an okay nation, and I feel like there's fun and to be had in there. But I wouldn't say it's a good starting nation. I feel like. On to China. China is another interesting nation, as it is one of the nations with It's a very interesting nation is the fact that it has very little tanks that are actually their own tanks. Most, if not all of basically anything that isn't anti-air is like anti-AA guns has originally been owned by another nation. For example, it has access to the T-26, M8 Lux. It has access to Stewarts. It has access to the Chaffee. It has access to a T-34 and a Sherman, multiple Shermans. It has access to the IS. So that's what makes it very interesting. So you get to learn a lot about other nations. So it teaches you a lot of stuff. It teaches you how well the Stewarts are. It teaches you good brawlers in the T-34 and the Sherman. It teaches you nice scouting with the M24. It teaches you good sniping with the yeah, it teaches you good sniping with the Ziz gun and other stuff. It teaches you nice Heat Boy with the M8 HMC, the 50 cal as well with the M8 locks as well. Nice speedy boys. M8 HMC and the M8 lock, great speedy boys. The T26 is good. There and my friend has put very good light tanks, good AA, good brawlers, nice passive aggressives, but it has no heavies or casemates early on because you only get that later on. But yeah, in terms of early on, I feel like they're a nice thing to help you get into. I feel like they're a good nation to either get used to. If you haven't picked the big three outside of Germany, it's a good nation to get into the big three, to what to expect from a lot of them, especially America, I feel like. And no, especially, well, it does do a lot of the Soviets, but only really later on. Its big thing is America because it shows you Stewarts, it shows you a Sherman, it shows you a Sherman 76 even. I think I think it does a Sherman 76, yeah. But Japan also has that as well, so that's enough for Japan. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff with it. So I feel like in terms of variety of tanks, apart from heavy tanks, it's decent. It's decent for the fact that it just doesn't have a lot of heavy tanks, but it does a lot of things well as well because you but I do feel like it's not a great starting nation. I feel like it's better as a transition nation, as transitioning from one thing to another, where you can like learn how to play another nation because you're so used to playing this. So I feel like it is better suited there. Some more like, yeah, I guess because since it's mainly a mix of American and Soviet tanks, with the only thing it really has going for it at its own is AA. Um, I feel like it just needs to be mentioned that like anything that I've mentioned here can be brought from any of the two previous, like any of the first, like in between the first three things, like the one and three, like parts of this video, where it's like America first and Soviet third, and that's like kind of what we're talking about. So yeah, there isn't really much to talk about there. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's still pretty good. Yeah. So now we go on to Italy. Italy. Very nice, Italy. Now we're going to be talking about Italy. Italy is another minor nation where it takes some vehicles from other nations. It takes the some Shermans from America and it takes some Stus from Germany. And but a lot of it is its own stuff. Now, Italy is probably one of the biggest nations that I have that are on my notes. Now, so it rank one. It has two light, one medium, decent light. It has decent light in general. It is pretty complicated and not angling, and it doesn't really teach you how to angle. But you need to learn how. It really teaches you how to over angle, so you when you get hit with jank. It has nice handling and gun, decent hard early. Like it's decently hard to do, like get used to early. It has decent AA, great casemates due to the fact that it has its own very good casemates in the 76-41 series, and it has also access to the STUS, the Stoke 3G at 4.0, which I've heard is an amazing thing. I haven't personally used it, but I've seen it kick ass. So yeah, and it really teaches you to switch round types from using APHE to using solid shot, that sort of deal. Like it teaches you when to switch rounds, when is the correct situation to switch rounds. For example, let's say you have a Stuart in the forefront and a no, not Stuart. Let's say you have a T-34 in the forefront, 19 like the 3.3 1940 variant, and you have a KV1 in the background where it's flat front plate is showing. You know you can use a composite round to get into it. So you use the APHE to take out the T-34, but then you use your high pen round on the KV. That's what it teaches you to do. It teaches you when to switch rounds, and that is what it's good for. That's another thing that it's good for. Um, it it doesn't you don't really need, due to the fact that it has such high explosive filter, it doesn't teach you how to aim, especially compared to the other nations. It does it probably the most egregiously for APHE, I feel like, due to the fact that it's APHE nearly in fact works as HE due to the huge amounts of explosive filler in it. Now, this definitely is like, yeah, it has a lot of explosive fillers. You don't really need to worry about aiming, and that's a pretty bad thing, especially early on. So I feel like that takes a lot of stuff. In terms of variety of vehicles, it doesn't have any heavy tanks early on at all. Not that I can think of. But it has light tanks. It has fast moving boys. It has doesn't really have any brawlers apart from the Sherman, and that's really it mainly. It has there's kind of like T-28 stuff in there. There's no heavy tanks, and it's not really well armored. So yeah, but yeah, variety, not much. Apart from AA, A is decent, but then they are 3. I'm not getting into that. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about that. So that's the end of Italy. Now we're going on to France, probably one of the nations that, due to my friend talking about it so much to me, and due to my friend like conversation, I can probably talk a lot about a lot of that I can like kind of do without notes. You know, they're just kind of the one where I can like actually talk about properly. So let's get into it. It's France is difficult at first, forces to learn how to angle and aim. Angling and aiming, especially with the AP rounds, because with the AP rounds, it is a lot more due to French AP rounds forcing you to learn how to aim, but it also is a lot more punishing due to the fact that it doesn't produce as much spalling, which is the exact opposite of Britain and most other AP rounds. Um, it doesn't really teach you that much spalling, unfortunately. Uh, which is bad. It does have good brawlers because it does, it gives you Shermans. It gives you access to a few Shermans. It gives you access to a nice with the Crusader. It gives you access to Stewards. Well, I'm not saying those are brawlers, but I'm just saying it gives you good access to other stuff as well. There's the B1 Tear and the B1 Biss, especially, which is a personal favorite of mine. Just looking at it, I just like it. looking at it. I never played it, but I do like the look of it. I think it's a good heavy tank. It has heavy tanks early on. However, the 2C, the 2C, the 1.7, the 2.3, which needs to be down here to 1.7, where the 2C bits is. The one with the big fucking gun on it, because for some reason it is up there. I don't know why. It is shit. Yeah. But it also has like the ARL, a heavy tank, which is a good heavy tank. It has a nice round on it. It has nice light tanks. It has nice speedy light tanks in the AMX-13, which is technically a 4.3, but yeah, I guess. Oh well, we'll have to. It has a nice premium in the AMX-24, but that's a premium, so I'm not going to talk much about that. That's really all I can really say about France. But yeah, it does have access to 50 cals with some of the stuff. It has the AMX-13 dog, which is also 4.3, but yeah. France is a decent nation, however, I feel like it is a lot more punishing than other nations due to the fact that due to the lack of spalling it produces for aiming. And I feel like aiming is probably the most important part of learning how to play, as aiming really, really gets into it. And yeah, yeah, aiming is probably the most important part, then angling, then everything else, I feel like, in terms of that. In terms of like what to learn early on. Because you're gonna need to know where to shoot shit. And yeah, and France does do that, however, it's a lot more punching, so I don't think it's good for Britain. And yeah, that's all I really have to. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna just pause. France, something that I didn't mention is France's anti-tanks. It does have a few decent anti-tanks early on, where it does have big boy anti-tanks. It has access to an M10. It has access to the. It has access to nice Lancias, which are like, or I think not Lancias. No, not. Is it Lancia or Lorraines? The Lorraines. The Lorraines are very good tanks, and they can do some very good damage early on. And I used to hate the Lorraine in terms of going up against it early on. I was like, oh my god, it has nice fast boys early on with the AMD 35. Yeah, it does a lot of things nicely. It's very good, and I wouldn't recommend. I think it might be third in terms of where I'd put it. So yeah, on to what is next. I think we're on our last one, folks. I think we're on Sweden. Well, let's get to it. So from what I've seen, Sweden is kind of like Japan, where with sniping, where it's very good at sniping. It has a lot of snipey tanks with APDS, with a lot of low gun drop. Oh yeah, that's another thing I forgot to mention. A lot of this nation does not teach you how to like do gun drop, which like in terms of like round drop, which the Shermans do very well, considering the fact that a lot of Shermans, especially the M4A1 70, especially the M4A1 75 from China, the 4.0, that definitely does. It has a lot of good heat boys. It has a lot of good speedy boys. It doesn't really get a lot of. It's mainly like very lightly armored T-28 like vehicles, except just less crew. You're kind of relying on Jank for like the Lago and the Yay, the STRV. The S-2 is the S-II is the good vehicle that has the most likely. The SAV, is it? Like the SAV 1946 is another good vehicle that has a great turn on it. It doesn't have great AA guns in my opinion, at least for AAing. The Lago, not the Lago, the L62 Anti is obviously a tank that is well for anti-tanks instead of anti-airs, rather like tanks and planes. So there's that. It has access to nice speedy boys. It does have access to a T-54 and a Panther 4. So you do get brawlers later, like very late on, like at 3.7. So there is that. It does teach about HE with the big HE boys. So there is that part around drop, and it does supporting with the Soviets do. So there is that. So there is that pro in there. And I do like that. It has no real brawlers apart from the 224. No good AA guns, for me at least, apart from the L62 like no for AA. And it teaches long range firing, and yeah, and it doesn't teach long-range firing. It's APDS rounds, which are called stuff. So also APDS there's a lot of spalling. So it also goes back to the French problem, where it punishes you for trying to aim. However, it does kind of let it easy thinking and a lot of other stuff. So yeah, that's all I really have to say for this video. If you have enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like, please consider subscribing, and I hope you like videos like this as well. Because this took a lot of time. Because I needed to record the footage for this game, I needed to make the thumbnail, which you can see all across the video for the stuff that I'm footage for, because I wasn't going to do footage for the nations that I haven't unlocked yet, especially France, because we kind of have a bit of a pact going on, where, you're not really allowed to go to other nations that the other guys are naming until they're... So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, please consider subscribing, and we're on the road for subscribers soon, hopefully. We hit 20 very recently. Can we get to 30 in the next next month or two? Until I go back to school and hit 30. Can we? Can we? Alright, see you guys. See you in the next one. Hold up, Jamie. Hold up, Jamie. Look. You forgot to say which was the best one. And by the way, this is me, like, just after finishing editing. Just when I realized, wait a minute, I forgot to say which was the best one. And finally, and now I'm gonna rank what my top 5. Well, there's nations. So I'm gonna rank my top 3. And number 3, I'm going to have to say France, as it teaches you how to aim, it teaches you how to angle, there's a nice variety of vehicles, and I feel like the learning curve isn't too difficult later on. I feel like the learning curve isn't that bad, I feel like. So there is that. Then at number 2, I'm going to have to go Sweden for the fact that it also teaches you how to aim, however, it teaches you how to aim snipers, HE boys, and I just like the fact you get rank 3 early on, so you can complete. It's the fastest way to get. It's the fastest way to get battle pass challenges done. Now this is going to be a shocker for a lot of people, a lot of my friends watching this video. My number 1 thing is Great Britain, because it teaches you how to aim, it teaches you how to angle, great brawlers, great AA, great anti-tanks. It is just a good nation all around. It is great for learning. It is probably the best learning nation in the entire game, I feel like. And there is a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of fun to have early on. From 1.0 to 4.0, there's so much fun to be had at different BRs, and it is a good learning experience, and it does actually help you with a lot of stuff. It may not teach you like very specific stuff like HE boys or sniping to a certain extent, but I think for the most important stuff to learn about this game, it teaches you that to at a good amount so you can go into other nations. I feel like it is perfect. And an honorable mention to China, because it is a good transition nation into the Soviets and to the Americans if you haven't played them yet. That is a very good very good nation for that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please consider leaving a like, please consider subscribing, turn on notifications if you're new. Peace out, folks.